Hi Barb, Cezanne here. I hope you're having a good day and I hope you're enjoying the process of reviewing the class's presentations. I can imagine it's quite interesting to hear about each person's experiences and the design of their organizations. All right, let me get started. This reflection assignment has two parts. I'm going to start with the individual piece, where I'll reflect on early life experiences that shaped who I am today, how it feels when my dominant frame is in balance or out of balance, and how I might expand on my dominant frame and how I might bring that dominant frame into balance. And then I'll move into a reflection of the organization I work with. I'll introduce the Nelson and District Credit Union. I'll apply the 4 frames to describe the Nelson and District Credit Union, and I'll share some issues or opportunities that are appearing and discuss the organization's design implications. This is a timeline I created to help me, and maybe you, understand how the human resource frame became my dominant frame. My childhood deeply influenced who I've become today, and after completing this timeline exercise, I believe human resources has been my dominant frame right from the beginning. To keep this presentation short, I won't go through this in detail. However, feel free to pause the presentation to learn a little bit more about me. If you pause to read my timeline, it's no surprise that human resources is my dominant frame. I guess you could say this is where my energy flows naturally. Those close to me have even suggested that my superpower is my ability to build meaningful relationships. What makes my dominant frame feel in balance? When my actions align with my values, my human-centric frame, which is my dominant frame, feels in balance. When my dominant frame is in balance, I feel calm and steady and centered, and I can make clear decisions. There's no inner conflict. And I feel energized by supporting others. When my dominant frame is not in balance, I feel misaligned, conflicted, inauthentic. This leads to being emotionally depleted or feeling emotionally depleted and unfulfilled. To expand on the human resource frame of mind means to shift from being not just good with people, but it's about strategically understanding, developing, and leveraging people, relationships, and human needs to strengthen organizational performance. How might one expand their frame of mind? One thought is to be intentional about every decision and design move. This is about thinking beyond the human resource frame by considering both functional and social dynamics, which includes gaining more perspectives to be able to make wholesome and meaningful decisions. Another thought is to strengthen my ability to recognize unmet human needs. This is about paying attention or tuning in to what's going on, looking beyond surface level morale, and asking questions to better understand the needs of people. Another thought is developing people systems rather than just relationships. This is about strategically integrating people to support growth and development, a sense of responsibility, and a sense of community. Another thought is becoming intentional about culture shaping, and this is about reinforcing behaviors that we want to see. Culture is formed through what you model, reward, and what you tolerate. And lastly, to learn how to balance empathy and accountability. It's important to lead with both heart and backbone, and we can do this by setting clear expectations, giving direct feedback, while also showing compassion. Outcomes of expanding the frame of mind are the ability to make better, more holistic, and strategic decisions. Those whose dominant frame is human resources can often over-accommodate. For example, we're known to be people pleasers. Instead, a way to balance this is to practice values-based empathy. Another area where human-centric leaders struggle is they often avoid conflict. Instead of avoiding conflict, a way to balance this is to address issues with curiosity and compassion while still providing constructive feedback. Another damaging trait we're known for is over-supporting those around us. Instead, a way to balance this is to empower those around us and hold them capable. Intellectual and emotional agility. What this means. This is the ability to feel deeply without being overwhelmed and responding intentionally rather than reactively. Why does this matter? Life and work are filled with constant pressures and complexities that require both clarity and compassion. And how might we achieve this? By practicing mindfulness and by being intentional in how we think and respond. The outcome of expanding intellectual and emotional agility is the ability to be more emotionally steady, resilient, and adaptable in both work and life. I'll now shift into my reflection on the organization I work within. Nelson and District Credit Union. The picture on the right shows the tight-knit community we live in, Nelson, BC. Our small little community-minded credit union is right in the heart of it all. I'll use this laser pointer and show you about where our branch is located. We're right here in the center of town. Barb, if you haven't been to Nelson yet, it's a beautiful place, and it would be my pleasure to show you around if you ever get here. Here is a very high-level picture of our organization. We're a member-owned financial cooperative. We have strong values and local roots in our community. We're known as an employer of choice in our community. We're a small, tight-knit team of 50 employees, and we operate lean and efficiently. Now for the more granular analysis of our organization. I'll start with structure. We have a clear hierarchical structure. You might classify it as a classic or traditional structure. Departments are siloed, and we have limited cross-team collaboration. Teams are small and well supported, and although we are a highly regulated industry, there's autonomy within individual departments and roles. I'll move to the right and touch on human resources. People first practices are what we do. It's a credit union thing. And because of the people first practices, as well as quite a strong compensation package, we have the ability to attract and retain strong talent, which is great. We have meaningful growth and development opportunities within our organization, and I would describe our culture as values-driven. And I would also say that overall we're strong in areas such as psychological safety, diversity, etc. I'll now move to the political frame. We're a unionized environment. Employees are unionized and management is not. So you can imagine that creates a bit of a you versus them dynamic. With a union, there's also a negotiation and bargaining type dynamic. And as a small credit union, we of course have limited resources and competing priorities. Within our organization, there are informal influence networks, partly due to our unionized environment, I would say, but I'm sure it's everywhere. And I'll move on to symbolic. So the credit union is a cooperative, as I mentioned. And so we've got a cooperative identity, which means that we also follow the 7 cooperative principles. And I won't get into those right now, but that is certainly part of our identity. Another identity of ours is people before profits. That's a well-known credit union slogan. We've got deep community roots, and we practice community stewardship. And we tell stories. We do storytelling, which brings our purpose to life. This slide illustrates the interconnection between all 4 frames and how each influences the others. Start with structure. Structure obviously sets out reporting lines and roles, but it also affects how people are supported, which ties into human resources. As we know, human resources is about people's needs, motivation, growth, and development. But it also is about building the strong relationships that shifts influences and alliances. That ties into political. Political is about competing interests and influence. And you could say that what gets approved in an organization reflects its priorities and ultimately shapes its identity. And that takes us to symbolic. Symbolic gestures give meaning to the structures, decisions, and relationships created within the other frames. And these symbolic gestures give meaning to why it matters. Together, the 4 frames create the organization's culture, each one reinforcing or challenging the others. Through my reflection, I identified a few issues and opportunities for redesign. All these findings are implications of our organization's current design and structure. The first issue I noted is our limited cross-team collaboration. This leads to siloed thinking and it fuels political power struggles. Without cross-team collaboration, I believe the following is impacted: information flow, knowledge sharing and learning, connection to one another, consistency in people's experiences, and alignment to shared purpose. This is an issue that is a direct result of our current organization structure. That said, while it may not be a result of the other frames, it certainly affects the other frames and brings both functional and social issues to the organization. The second issue I noted was an issue with employee motivation. I believe this issue stems from a combination of factors, including our current organization structure, the political dynamics at play, and perhaps not enough emphasis on purpose, connection, and opportunity for meaningful employee contribution. These motivation issues impact performance, productivity, morale, and cultural strength. I acknowledge here that motivation is not an individual trait and that it's an environmental outcome. The third issue I noted was an us versus them mentality that happens in our organization. There are 2 layers of this: departmental us versus them, to do with the silos we touched on earlier, and also an us versus them between unionized staff and management. This stems from our structural design as well as our political dynamics. This us versus them mentality impacts cultural strength, collaboration, and employee contribution. One thing that stood out to me was how much weight credit unions place on our values, purpose, and symbolic identity. This exercise really highlighted how essential alignment is across the organization and how the 4 frames must be intentionally balanced to support that alignment. Otherwise, over time, the risk becomes very real. Misalignment can quietly weaken the culture, diminish purpose and productivity, and erode the symbolic image that the organization depends on. Here are the references that supported the research and insights shared today. Thank you for watching, Barb. I really appreciated this exercise. This experience allowed me to reflect on both myself and my organization and really deepened my understanding of self, and as well as the 4 lenses for understanding and leading my organization. I look forward to what the second assignment brings. Bye, Barb. See you Tuesday.